Cool.
Push that like button.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is August the 23rd, 2019. Strong hand, be a unique beast, value your wealth in Bitcoin. Having hype, unconfiscatable, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Offended by selling, in motion, 5-digit realm. Best guest in the space right here, your home for Bitcoin insider information. We've all got the conviction here. Aleks is back. Yeah, Aleks Spetsky, he is back from Australia. And we got Anders coming in from California. I am so pumped. We're just going to jump right into this show right now. The big news at the beginning of the week, you probably have forgotten it by now, people, because you've been inundated with, my God, this week was filled with like nonsense. Blockchain, let's start a blockchain for this country type of news. It was like straight out of 2016. But there was something pretty legitimate at the beginning. The Bakkt announced that Bakkt's Bitcoin futures and warehouse to debut in September. Now, we knew it was coming. Now they've given us a date. Anders, what do you think about this?
Well, it seems to be definitely all good news. I don't think there's anything bad about it, and as I understand it, it does allow institutions to get in a way that is secure for them that they couldn't do before. I guess it has to do with the way that the Bitcoin is held or being held in custody in a way that is safe and probably, hopefully, insured. And if that is the case, it's extremely positive. It's a thing that, I don't personally care too much about it because for me, I see the halving, as you were touching upon yourself in the beginning, the halving hype is what I believe is the strongest driving force of the price of Bitcoin, and I know you often, Adam, say the price is not really important, and of course we're here for mass adoption, but price does something to mass adoption as well. It is what gets people to they talk about it on CNBC and TV shows, and they pay attention, and then they want to get some because the FOMO starts. So it does have a positive effect on adoption. A higher price, also a higher price means that the developers basically get funded because some of the developers simply hold Bitcoins themselves. So a higher price means that they don't have to do other things but can focus on developing. And also there's, as I kind of see it as an outsider to the developer community, companies like Blockstream and others have been founded by people with a lot of Bitcoin, and they can then, in the same situation, because they become more wealthy, the founders of the company or the companies themselves afford to fund Bitcoin development. So I think price is super important, and going up is great. And I think halving is the main thing that drives it. I think the work from at 100 trillion USD, I think the quant mathematician in Holland, I believe, all the work he's done there at analyzing the stock to flow model for Bitcoin has been extremely precise, and kind of just have put a lot of confirmations to the thoughts that I had earlier, and then actually making some things more precise. Bakkt is great, but halving is what it's all about.
Hey, I like that attitude right there. And I like how you brought up the price in terms of funding the developers. Of course, I'm still going to say one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. I'm offended by selling, of course. But the halving hype obviously will bring up the price. But this Bakkt hype, institutional hype, perhaps brings up the price also. Again, for me, it's all baked into the cake. with the Bakkt thing. I knew it. We've all known it's going to be coming for a while, and now they give us September. So, Alex, what's your thoughts down in Australia about Bakkt?
Look, similar to Anders in terms of net effect. I think, well, there's a couple of points I'll touch on. I think first, top of mind is you guys were just talking about price and stuff, and price is inextricably linked. The economic model of Bitcoin is inextricably linked to its security. You know, speculation is a network effect. You know, and the way Bitcoin is designed as this fundamental economic monetary system, you know, it's recursive. You know, the stronger the price, the greater the security, the more the incentive, the more people want to get in, you know, the more volatility, the more speculation, et cetera. And it's sort of this snowball effect that keeps growing. So, you know, you can never really discuss Bitcoin without, I think what you're sort of getting at, Adam, is people start to, you know, spend their time thinking about tea leaves and trying to analyze that shit with respect to price, and not understand that the fundamental element of price is just this discovery of what this thing is worth. And as that price grows, it's just a reflection of the network becoming stronger and becoming broader, etc. Now, you know, tying that back into Bakkt, you know, how that helps. I mean, I don't know, like, so from what I understand, Bakkt is actual physical settled futures. So, you know, that's sort of different to what's been proposed in the past or what exists, etc. You know, I have heard people talk about, you know, these ETFs being a form of centralization of, you know, the actual asset itself. So, you know, I don't know if I've got an opinion there yet, because I haven't really spent time looking into it. But, you know, if you think about it logically, if you've got, you know, $100 billion worth of Bitcoin being held via some other ETF or some other instrument that is not actually Bitcoin, one could argue that, you know, that's a you know, that's some form of centralization in the broader ecosystem. I don't know if that has an effect. And, you know, again, seeing Bitcoin's progression, nothing moves in a straight line. You know, we sort of ebb and flow with you know, pockets of the whole Bitcoin ecosystem being a little bit more centralized at times, then being less, you know, centralized, etc. You know, we saw that with mining, right? Mining sort of went through this phase where it felt really centralized, and now it's sort of dissipating. So yeah, so I don't have a direct opinion. Do I think it's going to bring, you know, more capital into the space? Yes, that's fine. And at the end of the day, I mean, this whole thing is about, you know, a new monetary economic system, which is inextricably linked to capital coming onto the system. So whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Long-term thinking, baby. Think about the long term here. What's going to happen? We're just the tip of the iceberg here. All right, everybody, remember, check out these guys below. Their links are below. Pound that freaking like button. All right, Anders, I want to get into a subject matter that also was discussed throughout the week. It seemed like there was a lot of frustration on Twitter from, well, a lot of blowback, I guess. People talking about these crypto funds that diversified into all sorts of altcoins, and had people were handing over their money to these crypto funds for them to buy them the smart altcoins. And lo and behold, if you just would have held Bitcoin, just put it on your Trezor, forgot about it, it beat the altcoins. So Anders, your thought on the future of altcoins, diversification for the sake of diversification, and Bitcoin dominance.
Right. Well, like I've always said, and you know my opinion, since a few weeks after, or 1 month after I sort of got into Bitcoin, I realized that the rest was utter crap, and you should stay away from it. And that's was actually the reason I started this meetup in Los Angeles, to try and educate people to you know, the dangers of anything else but Bitcoin. Sure, there's dangers related to Bitcoin. There's nothing is safe about the success of Bitcoin, although I think it's a very high chance of success. But but the altcoins are, I think, if you study it a little bit, very clearly people that are scamming investors that don't do their due diligence, and they use buzzwords. Each coin is either a fast coin like Litecoin that had like a faster block time, or it's a privacy coin like Monero, or it's like and then there's Ethereum, there's a world computer, and at the end of the day, it's about raising funds and put it in the founders' pockets, but not really generating anything that has any value. And I know, I'm used to getting some hate for that, but I think a lot of people also have been happy that when people like me, both me and other people have been saying this, that they have avoided losing money buying altcoins. Now, when it comes to diversification, yeah, sure, I think it's a good idea to diversify, but definitely not in anything else than Bitcoin when it comes to cryptocurrency, because money is a winner-takes-all game. And according to Gresham's law, which makes a lot of sense, in the end, the strongest money, the best money, is the one that is the only one that has value. The rest will just be used and used and used until you don't have it anymore, because you don't want to have it. You want to keep the one in your hand and your back pocket that has the best value. So if you want to diversify, I would personally more consider something like QQQ, which is a NASDAQ ETF, and Vanguard REIT. They have a thing it's called VNQ or something, that take a simple. So that's away from the crypto sphere. So what I'm saying is, bottom line, I wouldn't touch anything else diversification wise in the crypto sphere. Only look outside.
And you're spot on. Anders, you're spot on. I was just going to throw something in there while it's on top of mind. So sure. I think, to really sum that piece up is, aside from the Gresham's law and the fact that money is a convergent network, and that all of these other things are effectively currencies, they're not equities, they're none of that sort of stuff. So what ends up happening is all the liquidity converges into the asset or the good or the tool that acts as money. That's the primary one, right? So aside from that fact, even if we took that out of the equation, for people looking to diversify, you cannot diversify with assets that are all correlated in nature. Like the definition of diversification is to pair or to group together assets that are uncorrelated. If everything moves in the same direction, so all these idiots who went and diversified their crypto portfolio with crypto, they didn't actually get the benefit of diversification, which is lowering risk. They actually increased the leverage in their portfolio. So they actually did the opposite. They actually did the opposite.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Deranged. They didn't do any numbers. They had no idea what they were doing. I wrote a big article about this, about why Amber, for example, is a Bitcoin only product, because I always get asked that, and they're like, oh, what if people want to diversify across coins? I said, that's just stupid. You can't diversify across coins. If we're going to allow people to diversify, it's a different asset class that does something completely unrelated to what Bitcoin does.
I agree. And also I think when it comes to this, as Adam, you were talking about in your question about these hedge funds or hedge fund managers or crypto fund managers, they created these funds because they can make good fees on splitting the investments between different cryptocurrencies. And that's why they had to argue that it does make sense to support financially this other crap coins out there, and they've just become so hilarious when they're still to this date, when it's, I think, so obvious in logic that these other blockchains and coins, it's so obvious that they're going to end up very close to zero. And they still argue that no, it makes sense to diversify, and they attack people like us for being toxic because we call them out on their scams, and that's why to this day I very proudly call myself a toximalist, because I'm a toxic maximalist, and I'm proud of it because I'm doing that for the better of people.
Now
Absolutely.
something that you said, they have the buzzwords though. The buzzwords lure in the 80%ers. They're going to always have, well, this is the next Bitcoin. This is the fast Bitcoin. This is the private Bitcoin. So of course it seems like you are diversifying into something completely different. But again, they are totally correlated with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes up, it brings all the rest of them up. If Bitcoin goes down, it's silly to me at this point. But again, there's a lot of newbies that have yet to get into the space that are used to diversifying. They that's how they were taught to invest, and they think these things are actually different. Now we're talking about different assets. Something else that's been in the news this week is gold, of course. Or the last 2 weeks, to tell you the truth, gold has been going up, and so I guess. Not Anders. Alex, what's your thought on gold?
Look, it's one of the, you just said 80%ers, right? So most people are going to be most people will still perceive gold as the safe haven asset, right? And at some point in time, this is a multi-generational shift to really, start viewing Bitcoin as that safe asset. So I know there's a lot of talk these days about, is Bitcoin becoming a safe haven asset? And I don't know, like I'm skeptical that it is becoming a safe haven asset at this point in time. From a viewing it broadly speaking, like I don't think most people will still view Bitcoin as a safe haven asset at this point in time. I still think it's more considered a speculative asset amongst people. But where I'm going with that is that the investment opportunity for Bitcoin, whilst there might be a bit of a flavor of safe haven, I think the bigger investment opportunity is that it's an emergent asset class, not just the safe haven today. Whereas gold it's not an emergent asset class. Gold emerged over the last 5,000 years. So gold's that boring safe haven asset that that people will go to when they think that shit's hitting the fan around the world. And I mean we're seeing that, right? Hong Kong, you name it. You can basically point to just about any continent now, and there's a big drama going on, and people are wondering what the hell to do. So, the US dollar, because it's still, again, money has this convergent network effect. The US dollar is still considered a safe haven asset. So, capital's flowing in there. People are also, thinking maybe I should buy some gold. You see silver rallying as well. And, maybe a small percentage of people are starting to view Bitcoin as a safe haven asset. So they're putting some capital there, and that might be part of the driver. But again, you invest in Bitcoin for a very different reason, is because it's an emergent safe haven asset versus an established safe haven asset where gold is.
All right, Anders, I know you're gonna have some stuff to say about what he just said, safe haven asset.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I want to continue on that. I think Alex is right about that Bitcoin is still emerging. Gold is seen as safe haven by people because, well, by all the people who haven't gotten full
Bitcoin out yet,
and of Bitcoin yet, they still see it as safe haven. Like right now, personally, I would see gold as extremely unsafe haven, because I would feel that within the next 5 to 8, maybe 10 years, there's going to be a switch between the valuations of those two. So I wouldn't feel safe at all in gold. It's nice and shiny, but that's not what really gives it its value, I think. So right now, Bitcoin is the emerging asset. It is, I think, because if you look at the properties all the way down and compare gold to Bitcoin, we all know that Bitcoin is a better asset in many ways. The ways that it cannot be seized, you can send it to the other side of the world instantly, and all these things. So it is a better safe haven asset. It's just still yet an emergent safe haven asset. But
Correct. Yeah.
It won't take more than 8 years, and the two have swapped places, in my opinion. Maybe gold will hold on a little bit to its value, but Bitcoin will be bigger than gold market cap
By
wise.
a
Like,
mile. Yeah. Anders, I 100% agree with you.
oh, yeah, sure. I'm not saying you don't, but
It's a temporal thing. It's like right now in the psyche of, most people and where most of the capital is in the world, gold is still, that piece, but Bitcoin is so much more superior. It's not even funny. There's only one element that gold beats Bitcoin in, and that is the fact that it's physical.
yeah,
But I'm sure you've got those, what are they called? The open dimes. That's basically
right,
physical Bitcoin.
right,
So
right,
you can
right.
just hand that around. So, and I think that's more superior to gold as well. So, really,
But then
yeah.
you got to think about, like, if you want to go through customs in an airport,
Oh, you got no chance.
what do you want to walk with something physical, or do you want to memorize?
Correct. Yeah.
Because if you just memorize your seat, you can carry $500 million in your memory. I mean, when
Yeah,
someone told
absolutely.
me that originally, I was blown away. I think
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, me and Gigi have talked about this a lot. Is that Bitcoin's redefined, how, like, redefined money, redefined location, redefined all of these things. Like, when someone asks you where's your Bitcoin, I mean, what you can't answer that question. It's an
Right.
impossible question to answer because it's not anywhere, but it's everywhere, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's on the blockchain. It's on all the nodes, right?
You know what? But
Oh,
is it?
when someone
Or
asks you that
is it in
question,
your head?
when someone asks you that question, though, when a normie asks you that question, you got to give them an answer that makes sense. I just like, it's on this device. I just
Yeah.
I give
Yeah.
them a simple
But,
answer.
Yeah, but fundamentally, that is, it's not the case, right? So it's just such a profound, reinvention. It's a profound reinvention. It's a profound change in the way we understand money. It's like when you hold gold, it's here, it's now. You can identify the location, you know what it is. But Bitcoin's so much more powerful in that sense because it is so much more meta. And yeah, so 100%. This is an emergent monetary asset that is superior in every form than anything that we've ever had. And the benefit that we have now, and this is sort of what I tell people, buying Bitcoin now is kind of like being that caveman 5,000 years ago when everyone was still using shells and rocks and stuff like that. And you were trading your shells and rocks with these other people who found this yellow shiny rock, and they thought the yellow shiny rock was useless because everybody else was using shells and stones and crap. So they were like,
exactly.
"Oh yeah, I'll give you this rock and give me the shells." And some dude was smart enough to collect as much of this yellow shiny rock as possible. And what ended up happening was it emerged as the best object or the best tool that we could collectively as a society use as money. And now here we are with a much better, 2.0,
Yeah,
like a real 0 to 1 innovation on that.
yeah.
And yeah, this is where the game is at. This is absolutely where the game is at.
Well,
What I'd like to, if I can say just something in extension of that, what I like to say or look at when I look at, compare different monies, like we came from the shells and the stones and then came to gold and now to Bitcoin. There's a couple of properties
Yeah,
that money has, and Bitcoin has infinite
all of them.
maximum value on all of them. Like,
Yes.
there's not one where, and yes, okay, privacy is maybe not there 100% yet, but well, if you use Wasabi wallet with CoinJoin, and then there's the other thing as well, you can use, I don't recall the name of that. You can actually already now create some privacy, but when you go through that, so actually all the way through, like traditional money properties, Bitcoin has maximum value, and nothing else has that has the network effect and security, safety, and scarcity, which is 100% cap again, that Bitcoin has. And at the same time, it's unconfiscatable and it's censorship resistant. So you can't make a better money than Bitcoin.
Yeah, correct. Let's just for the listeners, let's list those attributes. So
Yeah.
money performs three functions. Money should perform first and foremost be a store of value, then it evolves into a medium of exchange, and then it becomes a unit of account. So that's sort of the life cycle of money. That's the functions it performs. But for a money to perform those functions, it needs certain attributes. So it needs to be durable, it needs to be divisible, it needs to be portable, it needs to be homogeneous, meaning it needs to be the same, it needs to be recognizable, it needs to be scarce. So they're sort of the attributes that an ideal money has. And yeah, like you said, Bitcoin is a 10 out of 10 on all of those, whereas everything else is some sort of scale on that. And I mean, we've got 10 out of 10. you know, like, you're not going to beat that.
Then the thing you can say that, like, let's say if you're a Litecoin fan and you go, but yeah, Litecoin is like, we copied the code, like it's exactly the same, like, okay, small tweaks. So it's kind of also 10 out of 10, but here's a very important difference. And that is the network effect that Bitcoin already has, that Litecoin just never even has been close to. And that's why you can forget it. Like, you cannot take over something that has 10 out of 10 all the way down with like 1% of the users. You can.
Correct.
Like,
correct. Yeah.
You have to bring something to the table that is an order of magnitude better. But you can get an order of magnitude better when you're infinite value all the way down on portable, durable, divisible, fungible, etc.
Spot on. Yeah. So we had a 0 to 1 innovation to get here. And now that, like, at least, and this is sort of what I tell people, I go, there will not be, I mean, I don't know whether in 500 years we come up with something better. I doubt it, but maybe sometime in the next millennium or two or whatever, if we don't blow ourselves up, we may come up with something better. But as far as I understand, converting energy to, digital immutability and digital scarcity, that gives you, the maximum you can get on all of those, and is coupled with this immaculate conception that Bitcoin is. Like, it's this thing that is complex and has, grown in the market exactly the way it needed to. Your generation, my generation, no other generation, at least for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 generations, is going to come up with something better.
Agree. I thought the same, and that's why I can say, pound that like button.
My fellow cavemen, because we were talking about cavemen before. Pound that like button. You guys that are watching this, my elite friends, I forgot to say hello to all you, but man, this has been a elite show so far. I want to bring Alex before the show. I think it was yesterday. We're talking about Bitcoin being the contrarian bet. I think this is a nice time to bring up what you meant by that.
Well, I'm writing an article at the moment, which is it's called 10 Years On and Bitcoin is Still the Contrarian Bet. Like, if we, if Bitcoin was supposedly some sort of startup, right? It, like, when investors or VCs or, people in the marketplace generally go and look at startups, they're like, oh, look at this amazing startup. It's been around for this long. It's gotten through these challenges. It has all of these evangelists around it, like raving fan customers. Like, you look at all of those things. And in a normal mental framework, in a normal mental model, people would think that Bitcoin is the greatest success in history. But the general view of Bitcoin is, like, you walk around on the street and you mention the word Bitcoin to people, and we do this a lot because of the, the kind of product that we have. People think it's dead. People think it's, that there's still this idea that it's a scam or a Ponzi, or that it died. Oh, didn't Bitcoin crash? Isn't it back to zero? Like, it's still the general consensus amongst people is that this thing is gone. When in reality, when you look at the facts, it is, if you wanted to put it in the mental model or in the framework of startups or anything else other than something as contentious as the creation of a new money, Bitcoin is like the greatest success we've ever seen. I don't know of any product that's got raving lunatics like us jumping up and down on YouTube, telling people to bash like buttons and, warring with each other on Twitter and all that. I mean, imagine if a product had that kind of consumer base. It'd be the greatest product in the world. The closest thing I can think of is Apple, but I can guarantee you, people are willing to die for Bitcoin, not willing to die for Apple. So, like, this is one of the strongest stories I've ever seen. And again, it's still the contrarian bet because people, there's this broad consensus, like I said earlier, that it's dead or that it's, scam or whatever. Now, what that means is the upside potential is still extraordinary. Whilst it is the contrarian bet, it is extraordinary. And I put a tweet up a couple of weeks ago, which sort of said that, one of Bitcoin's greatest advantages is that so many people still hate it and will hate it for a while to come, which keeps it the contrarian bet. And that is where the upside is. And so what I'm referring to there is when Bitcoin becomes the thing that everyone wants or that everyone is already holding and that everybody already agrees is the thing that we're all using, it is no longer the contrarian bet. But at that point in time, it's no longer the thing you're buying for the purpose of, increasing your net worth or whatever. It's not Bitcoin has evolved from being this emergent store of value or this emergent monetary unit to being an established safe haven monetary asset. So this whole life cycle thing is really important. And right now, it is the contrarian bet because of the point in time where it's at. And it's just to see how something so successful can still be a contrarian bet. It's just fucking phenomenal. And I love that.
Wow. Pound that like button, people. That is inside. We've got the insider information. You really put it out there nicely, Alex. Anders, what's your thoughts
on the
oh, maybe if you had anything to reply to what Alex just pointed out there about the you go out in the world today and most people think it's failed.
It's
but
true.
Then
It's true that it's true that it's actually amazing that 10.5 years on, something that is so, I think, logically fantastic idea still has not been accepted by each and every 7 billion people, or how many we are on Earth, because it makes so much sense, and it's actually not so difficult to understand if you opened your mind. But the problem is that the teachings we have from society, from school, from mass media, from like unaudited federal reserves that are teaching us another thing, of course, that has given people a point of view where it takes longer time to get them to open their mind and smell the roses, or see how simple and logic it actually is, that Bitcoin is just a better money.
But that's where the advantage lies for people like us, right? So
Sure.
I have a saying in life. Yeah, I have a saying in life, which is, if you want to win, be the contrarian. Don't run with the crowd. And this is why I love Bitcoin so much, is because I'm fundamentally a contrarian. I've always been one in my life. I always do the opposite of what people tell me, all that sort of stuff. And I mean, I sometimes take things to an extreme, but I love Bitcoin so much because if you go in the, in the normal world, Bitcoin is the contrarian bet. Everyone thinks it's dead. In the finance world, everyone thinks it's it's bullcrap. We've got a financial system ready. You go into the blockchain world, they all think it's crap because they're more interested in their bullshit blockchains. You go in the altcoin world, the Ethereum guys, they think they're the real deal. So all the shitcoins think that it's crap. Everybody, like all of these groups, all think that it's the one that's missing. And for those who can, and there's a distinction between being contrarian and being stupid, and that is taking doing an analysis from first principles. So when we look at Bitcoin, you and I don't just magically believe in it because we also believe in unicorns and fairy dust. We have actual facts, and we have first principles that guide why we understand Bitcoin the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you find something where the first principles add up and you have a consistent, strong, applicable narrative, and everybody else is thinking the opposite, you have the greatest opportunity for upside possible. And that's why, you know,
You know what, Alex? It reminds me of I started investing just a little bit when I was 12 years old. I bought my first stock, and people mostly said you should go and talk to the advisor in the bank which stock to buy. But I'm like, if whatever advice I'm gonna get there, everyone else got it first before me. I'll be going with the flow, and I'll be 7 steps behind them. That's not gonna be advantageous. You gotta do your own analysis and your own thinking and find out what's a winner and what's not a winner. And I think I personally started believing in internet in like 95, 90, I think 95. I started an internet company in 96, and it was the same situation as now, that people didn't believe in the internet in the 90s. Like a lot of people, some people did, but a lot didn't. Because why would we need a news website? Because we have newspapers. I'm just going to read my newspaper. Why would I ever go to a website for news? Well, you will read your newspaper if you want yesterday's news, and the website is for today's news. So what am I trying to say with that? I think what's important, what I've always tried to do, and what comes natural to me is, if something new comes along, look at the properties of that thing, like analyze it, and totally ignore the fact that it has 0.0001 market share at this point in time. Only look at how great it is. And if it is like orders of magnitudes better than what is now, it doesn't matter if it hasn't taken over the world yet. Then it will, highly likely, unless there's something structurally in the way of that happening. And that's where I think the 80%ers, as Adam speaks a lot about, and which is totally true, I agree with you, they tend to not believe in something becoming successful until it actually has become successful. Which is going along the thoughts you have with the contrarian bet there, I think.
Fitting in is overrated. Fitting in is overrated, as I say.
Sorry? Fitting in, totally, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's. I want to talk about something that involves 80%ers, something they don't have. Low time preference as a way of life. Aleks.
Yes. I was catching up with a friend over the weekend, and we were just having a conversation. So she's sort of like, she's interested in, the environmental movement and, being ecological and all that sort of stuff. And, I could sense, smart girl, but I could sense undertones of things like, it's the corporations and all that sort of stuff that are screwing up the environment, and she sort of almost said like the corporate capitalist sort of structure. And I had to correct her. I was like, look, it's got nothing to do with capitalism. It's got everything to do with the time preference that society has at the moment. Capitalism at its core is actually the closest system we have to something that is natural, because capitalism, optimizes for power laws. Capitalism optimizes for production, for value, for input, for work. Whereas the crony capitalism system that we have at the moment optimizes for, when you're at the top, you don't stay at the top by innovating or adding more value. You stay at the top by regulating and getting into, powwows with your mates, so that way you can put roadblocks in front of, those that are potentially better than you. So what I sort of explained to her was what Bitcoin gives us, and why, again, it's such a contrarian view to everything that we have in the world today, is Bitcoin optimizes for a lower time preference type of lifestyle, or a lower time preference type of economic system, because your wealth and the purchasing power of that wealth, at a point in time will become fixed. the work you put in is measured in this unit, and that unit is fixed in society. Now, yes, there might be fluctuations and stuff like that, but broadly speaking, so what I'm talking about is, at the point of hyperbitcoinization, or, where Bitcoin is the network upon which, we're all sort of operating in. At that point in time, when you don't have to, I'll explain it this way. At the moment, we have the monetary system, or the economic system, is designed so that you're incentivized to go and spend as much as you can and to chase yield in every single way that you can, because your wealth is depreciating by about 50% every 10 years. So what you inherently get is a system or a model where consumerism is optimized or is incentivized. People just go and spend all the money they have because they're incentivized to consume because of inflation and because their wealth is depreciating. And then those who may not want to consume, instead of producing, what they're going out and doing is they're going investing money blindly into anything that they can possibly invest in, chasing yield in places where you wouldn't normally chase yield. And we see malinvestment, we see stupidity, we see all of these zombie corporations, growing around the world. We see, ghost cities like we see in China. We see all of these distortions in an economy because we're incentivized to have a high time preference. We are incentivizing now over the future. Whereas if you can swap that around with something like Bitcoin, where you actually fix the unit through which we measure people's value input, i.e. the money, you create a society where that incentive doesn't exist anymore. So those who want to store their wealth, they don't have to chase yield anymore. They can store their wealth. Those that want to work and have input, guess what? Now you don't have to go and blindly spend all your money. You can optimize and you can buy what you want, what you need primarily first. So it's a, the way I look at economics, it's just a fractal of biology. It's a fractal of physics. Everything, functions on incentives. A physical system is something that has inputs and outputs. And, like the best analogy I give to people is more a biological example is the incentive mechanism for life is pain and pleasure. You do things, you get pleasure, you do more of those. You do things, you get pain, you get, you do less of those, and we start to optimize and grow around that. An incentive, an economic system is very similar, is that the incentive and the disincentive is like pleasure and pain. And what ends up happening is the way you set the framework up then takes us down a path. And in the beginning, it might not seem too bad, but you take that out 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, here we are now where we're all blind consumers, and we've built all of this, financial so-called infrastructure where, for the average mum and dad, like I was catching up with my mum and having breakfast 2 weeks ago, and she's panicking. She's like, I've saved up all this money. I've, been working. I don't know. Should we put it in a property? Should we go in the stock market? Everything's, going up and down. We don't know what to do. And I'm like, man, that is so messed up. Like the fact that people don't know where to store their wealth because they're too scared to keep it in a bank. They don't want it to devalue. They're scared of negative interest rates. They're scared of assets because they've been overhyped. Like the world's gone mad. And that is all as a result of this high time preference, this now at the expense of the future. So to loop this all back with this girl who was a bit more an environmentalist, and what I sort of explained to her is that the way to fix a lot of these problems of, crazy, shit that's happening with the environment, like where we don't care about the future of that, is to adjust at the core the time preference for society. And when we have a lower time preference, we will do things that are more ecologically sensical instead of nonsensical, because we are all collectively converging towards a bias that is long-term as opposed to short-term. So anyway.
You know what, though? I think the buy, hyper consumerism is just too tempting. I think the 80%ers will always be that way, and that low time preference isn't going to be their thing. But Anders, what do you have to say?
Yeah, well, I think that, well, Adam, that once Bitcoin, which is what I believe happens within 10 years, takes over as the money that everybody has around the world, it will be the world reserve currency and general consumer money, call it what you will. It Because it's deflationary, it will teach everyone, including the 80%, as they will see how, if they wait 1 month buying that thing, it's become cheaper. They will see if they wait 1 year, actually their money has become even that much more worth. And the reason that happens is that you have this much money in the world, which is the 21 million bitcoins. Then you have this much GDP. The money doesn't rise, but GDP, production of goods and services keep rising, and that's why the value of the money keeps going up, because each unit can buy more of all the production. That's what's meant by the deflationary, and I have no doubt that this is such a strong mechanism that it will change people from high time preference to low time preference. Will be going from consumer society to a saving society. I think it can actually be
Productive. I think that, so what we move away from is that kind of a model optimizes production as opposed to consumption. And that's the important thing,
right.
because what you want to do in that type of a environment is you want to acquire more wealth, because your wealth is going to appreciate. So what you want to do is you want to produce more. You want to be a better producer. You want to you want to add more value. You want to put more input into society, and that's a strong fundamental incentive of that system. So yeah, 100%.
I think it will. Where today we think it's the the chance of saving your way to a financial independence at retirement, like that you can actually retire on the savings you did throughout your life. It's pretty much a joke today. It's non-existent, but
Correct,
that will again become very much possible, even for lower middle class and to some extent poor people, as long if you can keep your spending at a low enough level, then that deflationary effect your money has, the way that they become worth more, even for someone who doesn't make that much money, give it 5 years, give it 10 years, 15, 20 years, people will learn that they, through being, saving instead of spending, that can really accelerate and they can become financially independent.
I want to ask Alex one question here. You brought up the word hyper-bitcoinization, and Anders is a big believer in that. Are you a big believer in that too?
I'm okay. There's two parts to that question, I guess. Is number one is the time frame question. I personally don't believe 10 years is realistic. I personally think it's going to take a hell of a lot longer, because I just think that this is a multi-generational shift. Then secondly, I don't know whether we end up in a world where it is just Bitcoin. I actually think we're more likely to head in a world where we've got parallel economic systems functioning. Where you've got, I kind of call it the four that I kind of say is you're going to have US/NSA, you'll have the Chinese social credit system, you'll have Libra and Zuckbucks, and you'll have the one free society that runs on Bitcoin. Now, long term, what does that look like? Will the people from the others jump ship, and come across to Bitcoin? Maybe, but maybe they'll be stuck in their own matrix. They'll be too deep in their own matrix that they won't jump. We'll have this parallel system. So I feel like that's the more pragmatic and realistic approach. But who knows?
I think it's going to be although I can hear that both of you believe in this, I think it's going to be so obvious for anyone living in any of those other systems and storing their wealth in either a Chinese currency or a US NSA currency or Libra or whatever, that Bitcoin is so much better, because we are going to reach, the knowledge and understanding of Bitcoin is spreading like rings in water. And yes, we're still at a very low percentage of the global population, but we do have tremendous speed still. When you look how much is achieved from, in 2008 it was one person, and then in 2009 I don't know how many people, 10, 150, maybe 20. In the beginning of 2000, it's so
It grows by an order of magnitude every year. Yep.
yeah. So an order of a magnitude every year is a lot. So
Yeah.
that means 10 years from now, that means everyone in the world has the knowledge and understanding. Maybe there'll be some left, but I mean, all it takes is, more than 90%, and then the effect will be so strong that that there's no doubt, I think, there won't be, you can't ignore it anymore, and it's just it's going to happen. You can't fight it. Like fighting, I think it's my opinion, fighting Bitcoin taking over because it's superior is like fighting the gravity of a black hole. That's what I like to say, because that's impossible. You can't fight the gravity of a black hole, and I don't think you can fight Bitcoin taking over. And I think it has that kind of speed, as you say. And maybe it hasn't felt that much the last couple of years, but since we're getting to a size now, an amount of people, having that speed now, it really starts sticking up.
Yeah. Look, I agree to the extent that, I've called Bitcoin a black hole many times. It's just something that sucks liquidity. It sucks up capital. It sucks interest. It sucks your whole bloody life up.
Yeah,
it's my personal black hole. Here I am. It's technically my birthday today, and I'm in the office at 6:30 p.m. and I've got another podcast after this. So literally, this is all I do. And
I'm sitting here Thursday, 30 minutes past midnight. Now it's like 1.5 hours past midnight.
Yeah. So it's
loving it.
Exactly. So I 100% agree with you. I just feel like the existing system, I just don't think it's going to be that clean. I think the process is going to be far more protruded. So even if we do end up with some form of hyper Bitcoinization where everybody is on a Bitcoin type standard, I think that is probably even further away. I think the Bitcoin economic system can probably sustain itself on, and I'm just pulling numbers out of my butt here, but 500 million or 1 billion people, and it can be a parallel functional economic system through which, a subset of the population completely, is able to operate on, and they can be anywhere around the world. Whilst the other systems, the only way they'll survive is by literally creating firewalls and roadblocks and all of that sort of stuff around within their jurisdiction, so that the people who are inside those, they just don't, they don't get to peer into, this Bitcoin ecosystem. And that's sort of...
I hear you. I just don't think it's, and I mean, yet again, just let me say this, we very much agree on that's probably, that's where it's going to end up. And talking about the timeline is not something worth maybe discussing too hard. But I think that, reaching a level where, say, 500 million use Bitcoin and have Bitcoin, it's just going to be impossible for these other jurisdictions to keep Bitcoin out, because it's exactly the same as alcohol during the 20s in US, the prohibition. You had plenty of alcohol. The last 50 years in US, I don't know how many trillions of dollars have been spent on fighting drugs. All possible drugs you ever wanted has been available in US. I don't know from personal experience, but I mean, I see movies and TV and, you hear things. So I mean, it is, right? It's a problem. It keeps being there.
Yeah. Look, I agree. But I'll just always err on the side of never underestimate the stupidity of human consensus when people are operating, from a place of unfounded fear, which is where they've been operating for a long time. So yeah,
that's a good argument right there, though. I have to give you that.
All right, dudes. Well, I want to say this. Remember, Anders, there are some dudes out there that are very passionate about your hyper Bitcoinization in 10 years. And you can follow Anders. He is linked to below. So is Aleks. And I want Aleks to talk about one of your passions, and that is Amber app. We haven't covered that yet. We got to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, really briefly. So again, this whole low time preference thing, Amber is a dollar cost averaging app. So there's no longer an excuse for people not to buy Bitcoin when they can set an automatic purchase of $20 a week, $50 a week, $5 a day. It doesn't really matter. And it just accumulates Bitcoin for them. So it's actually, it's a low time preference product for a low time preference money, for a low time preference human being. So anyone out there who's trying to, practice becoming a more, sensible low time preference human being, and wants to start accumulating and collecting this asset, have a look at amber.app. That's our website, and that's really the fundamental thesis behind that is just now's the time to collect Bitcoin. Now's the time to, get as much of this thing as you can, because you're not going to be able to buy as much in the future. And that's basically the one thing that we all can guarantee. Like we can't guarantee the time frame. We don't know whether it's going to take 10 years, 50 years, 100 years to hyper Bitcoinize. But that's the trajectory, that's the trend. And the one thing, we can all agree and say is that Bitcoin, in the future is going to be worth a hell of a lot more than it is now, in dollar nominal terms. So, the best strategy is just close your eyes and just keep buying. Simple as that.
One quick thing about Amber app. I have many people, a growing audience from Australia. It's only available in Australia, correct?
Correct. It's only available in Australia at the moment. I'm hoping by the end of the year. I've people from South America, from South Africa, like all this sort of stuff have reached out and said, look, when are you launching here? Can we partner? Can you help you and all that sort of stuff? So my plan is by the end of the year to announce the next couple of jurisdictions that we're going to launch in. So exciting times, man. Coming into 2020, we're going to be trying to get available in as many places as possible around the world.
All right. Value your wealth in Bitcoin. Aleks, thank you so much for making your appearance, your return to the show. And I really do love that 4 different parallel systems that you brought up. That I'm going toward that path that you talked about. Now, Anders, what are your conclusionary thoughts here? Anything you want to bring up, talk about?
Well, I first of all, I want to say, I think to Aleks that I think it's great what they're doing, and I wish them a lot of success, because it'll be good for them. It'll be good for a lot of people. I believe it'll be very good for whoever actually starts using the product. So great to have that word spread. Yeah, you're welcome, man. My pleasure. And then, if people want to follow me, I'm on Twitter with Anders. You put it below, Anders _ ANDERS_. And then I recently, I heard one guy from eToro was on Tone's show. I don't know if you saw that, Adam. I heard that. I know there's a lot of, you can't see everything, but so I found that a little bit interesting. I studied their website, and they have something. They're the world's leader in social investing, which means, people can follow each other. So if one guy is doing really well on his portfolio, then other people can say, okay, listen, I take $1,000 and copy whatever he does. Since investing has been my passion since I was a child, I can't wait for eToro to launch stocks as that you can buy that in US, because right now in US you can't buy that. You can only buy cryptocurrencies, and for me only Bitcoin is interesting there, not the rest.
All right. The eToro thing is very interesting because I believe I'm going to be here in Israel talking to a guy. I'm the host of a fireside chat on September 10th, a Tel Aviv event here in Israel. And I think I'm going to be interviewing a eToro guy. So this is good to know. This social invest that is very interesting. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
And speak, Alex, in Australia, I'm going to be in Australia October 17th until like November 20 something. So all you Australian dudes, I'll be seeing you guys in person in October. Alex, any conclusionary thoughts on your part?
No, man. Look, thank you for having me on, and it's a pleasure to meet you as well, man. If I'm up LA way, I'll let you know. We'll hook up,
Please.
catch up.
Please.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then likewise, Adam, when you're down this way, bud, hit us up. I'll be at Baltic Honey Badger in September, and then I'm gonna pop over to Palm Springs for Crypto Springs. Actually, Anders, are you coming to Crypto Springs or not?
That could be a good idea. It's not too far from here. When is that?
That's end of September, man. So that's around the corner from you. End of September. You should come along.
Oh, okay, yeah. So whoever has some info on tickets and locations, etc.
Yeah, just type in cryptosprings.com, I think, man, and just jump in there and
You're right.
go.
Just search for it. Why not?
Yeah.
You guys you're
a really good idea.
live. You're seeing it live. These dudes are in motion. You can meet them in person in Southern California, wherever. All right, this is great stuff. I love it. Thank you.
Adam?
Yes.
Yeah, I just also want to say thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I don't think I said that before.
Thank you guys for me. And again, this is real when you are up at 1 a.m. or whatever. All of us are up at 1 a.m. with this stuff at times, doing interviews, doing weird things, doing blog posts. This is real. This is the future. And as Alex pointed out earlier, it is amazing that on the street, people think this is dead. We've got the insider info. When you watch a show like this, you get the insider information knowing that this thing is huge. Like Apple would kill to have fans like this, to have passionate people like this. And that's definitely saying a lot. So this is just the beginning, people, just the beginning. So on that positive note, I am Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share this video, pound that like button, bang that button. We do this This Week in Bitcoin every single Friday. I do a new show every single day. Saturday is Beyond Bitcoin show. I've got the conviction. This is the system, a new show every day. Thank you very much, everyone. Again, Shabbat Shalom. We will see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.